Welcome to AHA, a human among humans. And we have one of the best that Cambridge can supply. I was going to say money can buy, but we have
wish.
Jake Keenan, and we're going to be discussing a book we both love. Jake, he slips these books to me, and then I stay up till 5 in the morning reading them sometimes. They're big, they're thick. The Evolution of God by Robert Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. And
Again, people can see.
yes. So why do we love this book?
For me to answer,
Sure.
I think we both got excited because it was history. It was an intriguing look at that either a non-believer or a believer could explore the history, think, oh, well, this is just silly people and their ideas about God evolving, and then you look at the march of those changes and say, hey, that process itself talks about something that's an important force within history to make the moral cohesion, to make people aspire to a more monotheistic God, and lots of ways where the process itself becomes fascinating and offering a different version of God than what you normally hear. So that's some of the reasons I do. What do you?
Yes, God is growing.
God is growing.
I love it. And with us, we're part of the process.
Yep.
Which is very Israeli. Israel means to wrestle with God. And sometimes win. I hope. Abraham, at the beginning of the Hebrew Bible, says to God, you're a just God. You wouldn't destroy Sodom, would you? If there were good people in there, you wouldn't do that, would you, God? So it's very ancient that God is growing more just also, and more loving, and maybe other ethical ways. And it's happening so quickly now. There's so many new ways to treat people, gays, physically challenged women. So there's a lot of evolution. And if God is the...
We should say the book doesn't talk about that. The book does not really go past the Koran.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, he's so down to earth. Why don't you pick one passage that you love from the book?
And talk about it?
And that can share with our audience why we're so touched by this book.
Okay, so one that grabbed me is I never heard of a concept called monolatry. I think that's the way you pronounce it. But he considers that a way station on the way to monotheism. So monolatry was where there was lots of different gods in a tribe, between several tribes near each other. And that, and this is true both for, not so much for Christianity, but both for Muhammad dealing with the problem in Mecca and for the Jews over a lot of their history, where they were dealing with these polytheists, other gods. And so they insisted that their God, in this case Yahweh, was more important than the other gods, but not that the other gods didn't exist. And I just love that part of the history where people were kind of accepting of a bunch of other gods.
Yes.
But yes, hey, Yahweh's more important, you guys got to recognize that, but okay, keep your own gods and deal with that. And it's just, he calls it a way station on the road to full-fledged monotheism. Elijah wasn't necessarily claiming Baal didn't exist, which would be the monotheistic position on this, just that he didn't deserve the respect of the Israelites who worship Yahweh.
Yes.
That's good.
So there's hope for all of us. If God is evolving, because people have different beliefs, Buddhists, Muslims, Jews, Christians, if God is evolving, especially ethically, because we need to do that. As Auden said, the poet, you have to love one another or die. It's built in to it's challenge to the human situation. We've got to learn to get along, or we're going to destroy ourselves.
So he does do a good job in the book of that, of showing how over these several millennia, and he starts roughly in 2000 BCE, going up through Muhammad, is that how in all cases not only did monotheism become more prevalent, but that ethical codes or ethical systems became more elaborate and they became more useful across wider groups of people, that you had ethics that worked for two different tribes at once and it wasn't just a local phenomenon. So that underscores what you're talking about how the ethics was expanding as well as the monotheism was growing and positions were becoming more universal. So I found that fascinating.
Hope for all of us. So that would be, right, we would have to see that the Muslim God is the God the Muslims pray to, and the gods the Jews and Christians pray to, or for the atheists, the God they don't believe in. The God they don't believe in, which could just be just another way of saying there's a mysterious creative process, we don't know what it is. And that all of them need to what? According to Robert Wright, if we grow ethically. We respect, if it's manala, how do you pronounce it?
Baal.
Monolatry. Monolatry, meaning we respect the other gods, but we think, just like we root for the Celtics or the Warriors, depending on where you're from, we respect the other gods, but we think our team or our spirit is the best.
Right.
Which everybody does, right? My country.
Right.
And when we see that it's not just separate gods, but different faces of the same God, and that all people are in the image of one uniting presence, being, spirit, evolving spirit. Once we can evolve to that, then we have a hope that we can survive.
Yep. Did you say what you thought was the most exciting for you about the book?
Maybe what I just said.
Okay.
But you had me.
I have a few.
Jake is so good. You had me mark other passages when we were preparing for you in the green room.
Yeah, do one that you like, that you think is good. You want me to do one?
Why don't you do one? Yes.
I got a kick out of his pointing out how for Christian religion that there's an element of polytheism left there because Satan itself is kind of a leftover being that has some power that's not just ridiculous. So that's effectively. He also talks about how Zoroastrianism, which had a real good and evil God that was still united in their struggle, was effectively one of the most monotheistic gods of that time. And you pointed how that was an influence back into
Isaiah.
Yeah,
I think they had an evil God and a good God, very close to what you're saying about Christianity. In Judaism, Satan is just like a court jester. Like he's at the court of Yahweh and says to Yahweh says, he says, no one really loves you. I'm paraphrasing Yahweh, because look at the world you created. And God says, what about my servant Job? And Satan says, well, he only loves you because he's got a condo in Cambridge and another condo in Miami and one in San Francisco. Take those away and all his goodies and all his health. You'll see if he loves you or not. So Satan is a trickster, a court jester, a court fool. In Christianity, we talk about evolving. In Christianity, the evolving ethic, which is to treat people from different tribes as all in the image of God, and to love your neighbor as yourself, was so hard that anytime you couldn't, that was old Satan. He evolved into a much more powerful figure in Christianity. All those, which were once luscious animal appetites, lust, which is your favorite? Sloth, lust, gluttony. Wow. Those were now considered satanic because you had a new way of respecting each other. Even the Me Too movement, men used to behave that way. And that was the way it was. And now there's a new evolving ethic, which is very hard for people like Charlie Rose and others to learn.
So you're supporting Robert Wright with his conception of moral evolution.
Moral evolution and monolatry was an evolution, especially when it moved into monotheism. Now, monotheism could be, it's always so dangerous. If monotheism says, my God is real and yours is not, and loses the heart of monolatry, which respected all gods, and you have the horrible religious wars we've been subject to. So here's a hard question, is it's not a straightforward evolution of better and better in every way. So what do we make of that?
He talks about a lot of backsliding, and I think we're all used to evolution being back and forth, yeah.
So we even human beings might be the virus. Might be doing the earth, and it'll do well without us. If we go, evolution will create maybe someone will treat the earth and surroundings better. So we must. It's interesting, Jake. We must evolve or die. There's something in history, and you said this so well, that he thinks that this power in history, we could call God if we want, that is moving us to evolve.
Could in fact be God.
Could in fact be, you could call it God. And those of us who need more help than others might like to talk to this power of history and say, would you be my friend?
Yeah, can I break in there?
Yes, please, I stopped.
And I want to both support what you're saying about that notion of God as being supported by Robert Wright, and then go back to he's known, the author Robert Wright, again, W-R-I-G-H-T, is known for his earlier book, Non-Zero Sumness.
Yes.
I think that's the name of it. It's Non-Zero Sum, and it was very popular in the 90s, I believe. And he does refer to that here. So what he's talking about, non-zero sumness, if you remember, comes up in economics, and it's the logic of 1 + 1 = 3. That you get, if you combine two different people's talents, you might get a greater reward than just them what they can do individually.
That's what we're doing here, in case you missed it. We're combining our talents.
And so he's saying that's true here in the moral and the theological sphere too. So he says that, he said, the read I'll argue is that circumstances conducive to moral growth, the breadth and density of non-zero sum dynamics intensify as time goes by. And he's saying this doesn't guarantee moral progress, but it shifts the odds in that direction. And so people are using moral things because you get greater rewards for that, and you don't have so much bickering or hurt. And,
if we can do that in this
if we can do that. But he's thinking that's an inherent part of the dynamics. So that's one part of it, is that when we do talk about how the evolution of God part, that the non-zero sum dynamics is the backbone of his thinking about this issue. But I did want to go to where you say, but his analysis does point to a real God, right? So I'll read
Let me just respond to what you just said.
Okay.
So what's happening now with the summit with North Korea is an example of, can we have a non-zero sum encounter where what Trump and the Kim Jong-un create something that is good for both of them. And we either do that again or we destroy ourselves. Now, what would you make of our country is seeming to... Well, you can do that with non-zero sum, saying we need to renegotiate our treaty with Iran. We need to renegotiate our treaty with our allies. We're not happy with the way they were in the past. It's dangerous. We have to renegotiate what democracy is, which is scary.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be part of the evolutionary growth. Maybe we'll have a tragedy in order to grow from the ruins.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna let you wrap that one up.
That's wrapped up.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, going back to how Robert Wright is saying that his reflections on the history of God and evolution of God reflect an actual God.
Yes.
So, we both should say that he doesn't do it very strongly. He doesn't come out and say this proves this concept of God. But he does continually raise the question and suggest an affirmative answer. And I'll give an example passage to show that. So he says, maybe the growth of God, and he's guided in little single quotations there, maybe it signifies the existence of God. That is, if history naturally pushes people toward moral improvement, toward moral truth, and their God, as they conceive their God, grows accordingly, becoming morally richer, then maybe this growth is evidence of some higher purpose. And maybe, conceivably, the source of that purpose is worthy of the name divinity.
Want to sum that up for our audience?
I think what he's saying is that, if you look at these changes through history, and you look how the moral consideration and the moral universalism grows stronger, and finds ways to pull people into subscribing to these agreements with other people, and how notions of divinity get refined, become more... He definitely in other parts talks about universal love or brotherly love or different kinds of ways that people are included in communities and how the communities are defined. But so all these, he's showing how they expand in time and include more people, make things less problematic because the morals cover different situations. So he's saying, looking at all those trends, then hey, who's not to say that trend itself reflects an order and evolution that is worthy of the name divinity. That's how I see it.
Love it. Yes, so God is evolving and even learning new ethics with us, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that means is somehow, well, just like history creates a frog out of a fish,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a new leap forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, and evolving history might be making it up as they go. It seems that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have and with dips. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
hopefully, we can survive some of the dips to
Mhm.
find new ways of connect. We're so hugely connected now.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to try another one?
Yep, I love it when you do, but I'll be happy to you more than me do.
Okay, I'll grab another one and let you go.
I have no need to. I love it when you do it.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I like the one where he talks about the Koran and how that the New Testament especially was less belligerent than, say, parts of the Koran and parts of the Old Testament, where the guys were really fighting other groups, and so you would have one, especially in the Old Testament, the Israelites going against Canaanites or whoever they were going against. So the passages had God in a much more antagonistic mode, and because the New Testament, the Christians were in a real weakened place militarily. They were in the Roman Empire. They didn't have anything. So the New Testament has fewer belligerent verses, but because it was never an expanding power. But that changed at different times in Christianity, such as with the Crusades, when they found the passages they needed to get the belligerence going. And it also talks about how in the Quran that I don't know why I'm acting like I know something from either of these religions, because I don't. I do love his treatment of it, and if those religions accept his treatment, then that's good. But it opened up how, especially for Muhammad, when his earlier period in Mecca, where he wasn't as strong, those verses, they've been shown to be much more peaceful and trying to get others to agree with him. And when he went to Medina and later, then he got a stronger following and decided getting ready to go the warpath, but still he was attacking bigger kingdoms like Persia around him. So he needed to keep things, hey, join my team or something. So the verses weren't very belligerent. So, but still more so than the New Testament. Anyway, that was an interesting side take, I thought.
And the New Testament does end, however, and Muhammad embraces this in his own way. Maybe not as brutal. The New Testament ends with Jesus coming back and killing immense amounts of people and rescuing the saved. So Carl Jung, the psychologist, called it the shadow side of love. Trying to love everybody, and then you can get, what do you do with all your anger and hurt and pain? You imagine revenge, but you imagine it because they didn't have the power to do it until
that's true.
the Crusades.
Right. Another interesting take he has, he shifts briefly to Buddhism, which he doesn't spend much time with, but his contrast there, I don't know if you remember it, was that he looks at Buddhism, that Buddha grew up in a fairly rich family.
Very.
And so he as an historian here, he's remarking how the problem for Buddhism was like too much earthly delight, too much riches and stuff. So that he's talking about how the problem wasn't, it's odd that there was a lot of austerity for early Buddhism, but that Buddha himself grew up in the ruling class. So he's against, in a way, the overindulging of appetites, and that's
Buddha is.
Yes. And so he's treating in a little bit of tongue-in-cheek way. He's saying that Buddha was the first self-help religion, in that it was, as an historian, and his remark is that Buddha was holding off, overindulging, and that's a new problem that people hadn't had before until Buddha, or at least recognized by him. Just little snippets that I liked, that grabbed me.
Evolving too, maybe.
Yes.
Evolving into right speech and right eating.
Mm-hmm.
Not easy.
Mm-hmm. And maybe that's true of other ones, but just pointing it out there was a helpful one. Go for more passages?
Yes, sure.
I think, I don't have any specific here that are worth going back to. I think that even though the book is seeming good size, it went fast for me. I don't know about you.
Oh, I stayed up till 4 reading it. I loved it.
And it does go through a lot of, it's mostly taken from secondary literature. I was surprised how much literature he goes through and researched. So the details of each individual encounter, each Old Testament writer, each particular stage of religious growth, of moral growth, all the way through St. Paul and dealing with different communities that he had to deal with as he ran around the Roman Empire trying to solve the problems. I mean, the history itself is and how it's organized under this theme of evolving greater universalism or greater monotheism. I think that's continually the riches that we got at her, at least I did.
Well, I leave Jake. Jake has convinced me, or he didn't convince me, but he inspired me. When I read, he does this. Jake writes down, he marks the book, buys it, usually, yes, or always, and then you type it up when you first write it down by pen. You type it right on, and then you look at them again.
Yep.
I want to do that. You're evolving my ethics of reading. I hope to do this, plan to do this. I can't wait to either have a notebook by hand, or I guess it's better to have it on the web because you can share it with other people.
Yeah, I do put mine later up on the web.
Yeah. Oh, you put it on the website?
Yep.
Wow, I don't have to do that yet. So that's an evolving, also, the web itself.
Yep. God knows where that leaves in terms of religion or divinity. What will we have with the web 50
Oh,
years from now?
yes, my Lord, talk about connecting the world with each other. But what he says, the last thing I'll say, which I loved,
Mhm.
that ethics isn't just deciding to be good or better.
Uh-huh.
It's discovering new, when you need to, you have to make arrangements with the Persians and the Egyptians in order to get by. It's ethics that was extremely practical.
Uh-huh. Oh, I thought you were talking about the afterlife and how morality was used to get to the afterlife.
Or even in this life, no.
Okay.
Ethics is practical.
Right,
It
right.
means you're my neighbor, I at least have to be civil to you or there might be trouble.
Right.
I told one neighbor leaving her dog alone who lived above you is evil all day. Even not evil, but cruel.
Uh-huh.
She stopped talking to me. That was not nice. So I had to learn not to use that language. I had to learn to be more ethical in relationship to her.
Uh-huh.
So, last 10 seconds, Jake, to sum it up.
We're fans of Robert Wright. The book is The Evolution of God, and it's both the evolution of how it happened in history, and it's a suggestion that that force